Have you noticed it too? The ones who used to speak with light in their eyes, who questioned everything, who felt too much, saw too deeply. They're quieter now, harder to find. They no longer fight the system, but they no longer feed it either. They're fading from the spotlight, turning inward, letting go, not because they've given up, but because they've finally understood something the world refuses to see. The spiritually awakened are not vanishing out of weakness. They are retreating out of strength. Hello, eternal souls? Please subscribe my channel to support me in my journey. May God bless you all. Amen. This video explores deep reasons why awakened souls are stepping back, not because they've lost their way, but because they've finally begun to walk it. Modern life thrives on noise, constant information, endless scrolling, opinions louder than truth. For a spiritually sensitive person, this noise isn't just irritating. It's violent. It fractures the mind, exhausts the body, and distorts the soul's signal. They used to try to keep up, to stay relevant, to engage. But over time, the awakened realize that silence says more than shouting ever could. They begin to crave stillness, not as an escape, but as a return. They're not hiding, they're healing. When you wake up, the need for external stimulation dissolves, and in its place grows a quiet reverence for depth, peace, and slowness. This makes the spiritually awake seem like they're disappearing. But really, they're just withdrawing from what no longer resonates. They're not rejecting the world. They're returning to themselves. As the spiritual person withdraws, they begin to notice something that once slipped past their awareness: how deeply disconnected the modern world has become, not just from nature or from one another, but from the inner self. The conversations feel more hollow. The goals feel more synthetic. So much of what people chase now is noise wrapped in desire, attention, validation, accumulation. And when you've touched something deeper, you simply can't play those games anymore. You can't pretend the surface satisfies you. You can't force your soul into a script that was written by fear. This quiet knowing changes everything. It's not about rebellion. It's about release. You stop trying to fix a world that doesn't want healing. You stop offering depth to people who only crave distraction. You begin to honor the sacredness of your presence by offering it only where it can be received with reverence. The world calls it disappearing. But to the awakened, it feels more like returning to the rhythms of your own breath, returning to the wisdom of your own silence, returning to the truth that your existence doesn't need to be constantly explained or broadcast to be valid. In the stillness, the spiritual person remembers something that modern life tries to erase: the simplicity of being, the joy in doing nothing, the richness of watching a sunset without needing to record it, the healing in just sitting with yourself, not to escape or distract, but to feel. This kind of living looks invisible to society, but to the soul it feels like oxygen. What the world labels disconnection is often the first true connection the awakened person has had in years, not with others, but with themselves. The more awake you become, the more you realize how much of society runs on fear. Fear of missing out, fear of being left behind, fear of not being enough, and fear keeps people loud, busy, performative. But the spiritually awake aren't afraid of missing out. They're afraid of missing themselves. They're not afraid of being alone. They're afraid of never knowing who they are without all the roles, responsibilities, and noise. So they vanish from the timelines, the parties, the social rituals, not out of rejection, but out of clarity, because they no longer want to be a character in a story they didn't write. They want to live their truth, even if no one's watching. Especially if no one's watching, because that's when it's real. There comes a point in every spiritually awakened person's life where solitude no longer feels lonely. It feels like home. There's a richness in it, a sacredness. In solitude, you don't have to perform. You don't have to translate your soul into words that others can digest. You can just exist, raw, real, unfiltered. And when you finally taste that kind of peace, returning to the old world feels like betrayal. You begin to notice how much pretending exists in daily life. The fake smiles, the rehearsed politeness, the avoidance of depth, the chasing of trends, the performative empathy. And while you may have once participated in it all, to survive, to belong, you now feel the weight of it in your body. It's not sustainable, it's not nourishing, and most of all, it's not true. So you choose to walk away, not because you're better, but because you're being honest. You know now that spiritual awakening isn't about escaping life. It's about seeing it clearly. And when you see clearly, you see what no longer belongs. You see what drains your energy. You see who only loves the version of you that stays quiet, agreeable, useful. And that clarity, while painful, is liberating. Because once you know the truth, you can't go back to pretending. And so you let go of the need to explain yourself, of the desire to be understood, of the pressure to show up where your soul no longer lives. This letting go may confuse others. Some will say you've changed. Some will say you've pulled away. And they'll be right. You have changed. You have pulled away. Because you've stopped betraying yourself to stay connected to things that no longer honor you. There's a moment in the spiritual path where you realize that disappearing isn't running. It's remembering. It's remembering the parts of you that got buried beneath noise and numbness. It's remembering the voice within that was silenced by conditioning. It's remembering that healing often happens away from the spotlight, in quiet rooms, in forgotten forests, in the spaces where no one is demanding that you be anything but present. This is why so many spiritual people vanish, because their healing is sacred, their solitude is holy, their silence is not empty, it is full of life. They are not lost, they are not broken, they are simply no longer willing to live outside themselves. And the world, still addicted to performance, can't always understand that. But the awakened do. The ones who feel the pull to slow down, to step away, to unplug, they know. And they are not alone. There's a quiet movement happening behind the scenes of the world, a slow exhale from those who once held it all together, a withdrawal not out of fear, but out of deep wisdom. These people, the quiet ones, the spiritual ones, the old souls, are not giving up. They're going deeper. They're doing the work that can't be seen, but can be felt. They're healing the collective by healing themselves. And that work is invisible only to the unawakened. To vanish in this context is not to disappear. It is to dissolve the false self, to release the roles that no longer serve, to stop performing and start living. It is the birth of authenticity, the end of illusion, the beginning of inner truth. And from that space, something new can finally emerge.